Hi everyone, we're going to go on and get started. Welcome to our last meeting of the semester. All right, let's begin with the roll call. AC Welch? Here. President Becker? Here. Vipa Murphy? Here. VPSA Tombu? Here. Treasurer Ercolani? Here. AT Weber? Ace Chair Mystic? Services Coordinator Tibatumwa? Conference Chair Christensen? Here. DOC Logan? Here. Senator Stallings? Senator Christian? Okay, thank you. Senator Monteforte? Here. Senator Moen? Here. Senator Vale? Here. Senator Gumijala? Here. Senator Jones? Here. Senator Lloyd? Here. Senator Zernig? Here. Senator Nieto? Here. Senator Cure? Here. Senator McDowell? Here. Senator Herbert? Present. Senator Pedro Santa? Here. Senator Collinger? Here. Senator Pierce? Here. Senator Knapp? Here. Senator Timberwolf? Here. ACES Co-Director DeRoche? ACES Co-Director Coleman? ACES Outreach Coordinator Preston? Green Fund Co-Chair Higginhauser? Here. TA Gould? Here. CBS Delegate Hill? SHIC Delegate Cheslak? Here. Okay, thank you all. We will now be voting on the approval of the minutes. We're just going to open up the polls because we need to vote on that. So the polls are, why are we so far apart? Polls are open. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining, and that is for the approval on last Student Senate's meeting. Or is, yeah, because Carrie isn't here. Okay, all those in favor? That passes. Let's move on to public comments, announcements, and additional events. So does anyone have any public comments, announcements, or events? Senator Herbert?
Take care.
Oh, do you mind the mic? Thank you.
Hello. Take care of yourselves. We're almost done. We'll make it through. Watch some Netflix.
Thank you. Do we have any further? Senator Gumijala? Can we get a mic down to Siamala, please? Thank you.
There is no Walt committee because that was on Saturday, but it was awesome, and thank you to everyone who was on committee or even came to the event. It was dope. Thank you.
Senator Christian, as in talk show.
There's a lot of study breaks and stuff over the next week, so you guys should go to them. But one in particular that I would like to plug is if you're interested in careers in either business and finance or government social service, you should go to one on Wednesday, December 12th at 7 p.m. in GRC 225. They will have pizza and snacks and coffee. And you should talk to them.
Thank you.
December 12th, 7 p.m. GRC 225.
Alrighty, do we have any further public comments, announcements, or additional events? Nope, seeing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the confirmation of Reese Downey as the Judicial Review and JROC Chair for the 2018-19 academic year. So could we get a mic to AC Welch, who will be leading this confirmation?
Hello everyone. Sorry, by the way, that we are so late in appointing a JROC chair. That is a failure on the part of cabinet. But at the same time, I've never heard of a cabinet that actually did applications for JROC chair. They usually just pick one and then say senators approve them. So we did applications. We got a lot of good applications, and we decided on Reese Downey, who is class of 2021. He's back there. There's Reese. To nominate him for the JROC chair for the remainder of this semester and spring semester. Reese is the outreach coordinator for the Quest Scholars chapter in Grinnell. He's experienced in this role fostering discussion among students while also being highly aware of his own personal experience and biases. Reese will make great use of his experience as an impartial arbiter as the chair of the Judicial Review and Oversight Committee. His application stood out among the many we received for the position, and we have the utmost confidence in his ability to carry out the duties of the JROC chair if he's ever called upon to do that.
Thank you. Go for it.
Should I do a quick overview of what JROC does? Okay, so just from some things from the Constitution, what JROC does. So on request from a student, the committee, which Reese is being nominated to chair, will review and render a decision on the constitutionality of any bylaw changes, any actions by senators or cabinet members, and other student government initiatives and actions. The committee has the power to strike down unconstitutional actions by SGA, and a decision by the committee can be repealed by a constitutional amendment following standard amendment procedures. The other additional role that the JROC chair has is being part of the 3-person hiring committee to approve hires along with the treasurer and the SGA president.
Thank you. Reese, do you have anything that you would like to say before your confirmation? If you don't, that is fine. It's all good? All right. So we will need to confirm Reese. So we're going to have to vote on his appointment as the JROC chair for the 2018-2019 academic year. Yes? Oh yeah, my apologies. It's all good. Thank you for that. No, it's good. Okie dokie. Now that that's all set, before we open up the polls, does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask before we confirm? No, seeing none, we're going to move right into the voting procedure. So the polls are now open. He is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. This is for the confirmation of Reese Downey, 21, as the JROC chair for the 2018-2019 academic year. We are just waiting on one more. All right. With 19 in favor, congratulations, you have been confirmed for the position. Alrighty, next item on the agenda are the ACE budgets. Since ACE Chair Mystic is not here, Treasurer Ercolani, would you like to talk about these? Can we get a mic down to Quinn, please? Thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody. We only had 4 budgets for the last ACE committee of the semester. Selah is traveling and so could not attend. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Do you have any questions on the ACE budgets? All right, seeing none. Treasurer Ercolani, do you have anything left to add?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Next agenda item, the budgets and SBC, the SBC and services budgets. So can we get a mic to Joshua, please?
Yep, we also had only 4, actually 2 budgets because one of them was an ACE budget, so we passed it on. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu didn't show up, even though they asked for $950. Yay. Also, once again, I put the balances for services and SPC up there. We did pretty well. I think this is the first time we've come that close for our services budget. It's only $393 left. Allocation, of course, spending doesn't match allocation, but I'm happy with that. And we have quite a bit left in SPC. So it was a good semester. Thank you guys. Thank you for all your input.
Senator Stallings, can we get a mic up to Senator Stallings, please? Thank you.
So I talked to the president of the BJJ club yesterday, and he said that he received no email, and he was wondering why that was.
Well, so the procedure is you just submit a budget and you show up. I think maybe perhaps there was some miscommunication there, and I'll reach out to him.
I just texted him and he's very upset. He didn't understand the procedure. It's really sad.
Well, I'll just email him. Maybe we'll do an emergency vote because that's gonna go up to $1,000. So keep that on your calendars.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any further comments or questions on these budgets? No? Okay, Joshua, do you have anything left to add? None of them need to be voted on. Okay, cool. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 7, which is the Spring 2019 Interim Allocation Committee Budget Approval. Yes, this is a presentation, I believe. All right, Quinn?
All right, hi everybody. So as you know, senators aren't elected for a considerable period of time before, after the beginning of each semester. So what we do as a body is we approve the interim allocation committee, which is chaired by myself and the SGA president, to spend certain amounts of funds before the full budget for the Student Government Association is allocated. So this is projected to last 2, potentially 3 at the maximum weeks. And this is all of the things that we need to have approved before we can do the things we want to do at the beginning of next semester. And some of you all and your new comrades are elected to these positions. So, we're asking for a pre-allocation total of $12,000. This is more than it usually is, but that's because we're trying to cover our bases a little bit and provide a little bit more of short-term institutional support at the beginning of the semester. To start off, we have the committee allocations that will be directly run out of IAC. These are pretty on par with what we received last year in terms of requests. So $3,000 for the All-Campus Events Committee, and $2,000 for SPC, and $500 for services. All of those numbers outpace our actual allocations from last year, but we have steadily allocated more funds as time has gone on, so we're projecting that this should be enough to cover any and all expenses that come up. The only reason it is even this large is because sometimes we have a relatively large, like $1,000+ item that comes out of ACE or SPC, and this should be enough to cover all of those expenses. And the other set of the allocations revolve around the cabinet's expenses and the elections budget for the beginning of next semester. This elections budget is $500. That would include the budget for Senate elections as well as exec elections, as we look at a new method of incorporating Senate and executive elections in order to increase voter turnout. We're really trying to push the elections board and our elections chair, Charlotte Love, to promote turnout in both Senate elections and exec elections, and do more outreach that is being done by the committee itself, so that way it's not candidate dependent, and it doesn't mean that whoever has the most ability to knock on people's doors or do the outreach, which may result from various different factors, ends up being the absolute determinant. And regarding the $6,000 for cabinet allocations, we're asking for $5,500 in institutional support. This goes to programs that we support but don't directly control, things like the New York Times Readership Program, or any contributions we make to leadership training in other departments, as well as things like SHIT that may need items immediately at the beginning of the year, just in case we have requests that are made before the Senate comes into session. So we're asking for $5,500 for that. We already have a request for $5,000, which is why it's such a large number. And then a $500 discretionary fund. SGA likes to do welcome back events, and we have our mini retreat at the beginning of the spring semester, and we don't project expenses that will exceed more than $500 to make sure that those things run smoothly. So if anybody has any questions about any of these allocations, please ask away. Senator Zernick.
You mentioned there's already a request for $5,000. Can you specify to that?
Yeah, so the CLS and Wilson program have requested from SGA $5,000 for next semester. That would go to the leadership program. The cabinet is deliberating whether or not we want to allocate $5,000 or various amounts. We have a little bit of time to decide. However, it's possible that they may want us to come back with a decision before the Senate is elected next semester. So we wanted to leave that option open. I think right now the consensus among the cabinet would be to not provide those funds. However, we're working with Professor Roper to get a more thorough picture of the situation with leadership before we make any final decisions. Senator Jones.
What becomes of unspent funds that are allocated for this?
They roll over into, so for example, in the committees, if there are unspent funds in the IAC for ACE, they'll roll over into the general allocation for the committee throughout the rest of the semester. The rollover cabinet funds will roll over into the cabinet budget, and all of these numbers will be taken into account when drafting the full budget that will be presented at the first Senate session next semester. Senator Conder.
So I know that Joshua said that the SPC budget, I think leftover has 5,000, and it's saying to add like 2,000 to this budget that we're spending on. Can you explain why we need to add 2,000 more, and how much do they normally spend then in 3 weeks? Is it really like $7,000?
Yeah, so all of the unspent funds from this semester go back into the general pool and are reallocated with the full budget that will be presented at the beginning of next semester. So this is all of the money that SPC, Services, ACE, Cabinet, and Elections would have to spend. Any rollover wouldn't be applied to this. Any other questions? Senator Pierce.
I just wanted to ask really quickly why you guys are thinking no on leadership. Is it specifically because the CLS and the Wilson obviously have a lot of money right now, or is it more because of the, I don't know what to call it, the retreat itself? Just what's the reasoning behind that?
Based on my discussions with members of the cabinet, it's that we don't want SGA to be seen as like the catch-all for programs that departments just haven't like gotten their own like enough institutional support from. We don't want them to realize, oh, we're running out of money in our budget, so we can just ask SGA for things. However, Professor Roper is making a relatively strong case for why like SGA should put in these funds, and also it doesn't appear that the program would be impacted in any way if SGA didn't allocate these funds. So it's a bit of a, a kind of up in the air type situation where, our contribution to this program would be good and help the program. However, it wouldn't hurt the program if we didn't contribute.
Okay, and then just follow up, if it came to SPC, would it be a different situation because it's more of like a student enrichment activity?
I don't necessarily think that it would be an appropriate budget for SPC because it's not a student group request, even though SPC is the miscellaneous catch-all organization. This is something where it's a large enough expense that we would have preferred to have it in our deliberations when we're trying to craft the budget for the beginning of the semester. It's a large ask, it's $5,000. So.
Okay, thanks.
Services Chair Tipton, has something to add?
Just for additional context, the only budgets that are like that size that come to SBC are Equestrian Club and Water Polo. We don't generally encourage like such large budgets coming to SBC.
And we're working on moving water polo away from SPC and just providing those institutional support resources directly to Ben Cooprider and club sports. Senator Zernick.
So in terms of cushioning for the early weeks of the semester, when is this leadership through CLS thing happening?
Spring
and is
break.
it crucial, it's happening spring break?
Yeah.
So is it crucial that we allocate that now? Or can that be further discussed when cabinet has made a decision? Like, does that have to be in this budget?
Yeah, so we're going to be working with Professor Roper about this over the rest of the semester, the last 2 weeks, and then over winter break. I don't know what his timeline is, but I imagine it's relatively urgent because of the fact that leadership is a national program, and they need to arrange those, the specifics of how it's going to be run with Grinnell well in advance. I'm not necessarily sure what that timeline is because we haven't been provided it yet, and that's why I want to make sure that we have the ability to say yes or no one way or the other if the ask happens relatively immediately. DOC Logan.
I just wanted to add something to that because I think it's a good question, and just something that I was thinking about. The reason I would be in favor of allocating this, despite the fact that like we haven't made a concrete decision, like yes or no, we'll spend it, is it's not just allocating money for if we decide to. It's also put us in like an interesting position where like we're working with CLS and we're able to kind of bargain and be like, okay, like if you want our money, like there's a few that like we want to be at the table helping make these decisions, like tell us more about leadership, like having a little bit of influence. And so I think that like it'll be helpful just to like still have this money available to us to be able to say like if you want our like money support, then you also need to have student input into the programs like you're asking us to work with. So like even if we don't end up spending it, just like the allocation that will allow us to like stay at that table and keep having that discussion, I think is useful.
Any other questions? Senator Zernick.
This is just like a general question for my own notes and in my own head. What was the total number for the fall overall budget?
The fall overall budget was approximately $227,000.
And do you expect spring to be about comparable to that?
Slightly larger because of the fact that we will have the flexibility of the rollover funds that weren't spent this semester, which should total in the tens of thousands. Additionally, there may be some policy changes that are handed down that like either increase or decrease our budget. So it could range anywhere from 200,000 to 350,000, but I imagine it'll be somewhere around 250.
Okay, thank you.
Any last questions?
Thank you, Quinn, for that presentation. Okay, so we are going to have to vote on the approval of this budget. If there are no further comments or questions, or Quinn, if you have nothing left to add, then we can move into the voting procedure. Just 1 second. But does anyone have anything left to add? No? Okay, so we're going to move directly into the voting procedure. So the polls are now open. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. This is for the budget approval for the spring 2019 interim allocation committee. We're just waiting on a few more. Okay. And with 18 in favor and 1 abstention, that budget allocation is approved. So congratulations. All right. Next on the agenda, we have a discussion on the concerts committee policies. So whoever is leading that discussion, do you want to get started on that? Senator Zernick?
Yeah, so I asked AC Welch to put this on the agenda after last week's discussion when Concerts Chair Christensen presented some of the changes. Specifically, the portion that I want to discuss and suggest removing is if a cis white boy band wants to play at Grinnell, they can, but they will not receive compensation from SGA, i.e. would receive payment and donation slash tips and merch sale, as is often done in smaller venues. So I had a couple constituents come to me with concerns about this, and I also had concerns, but I wanted to fully process before I spoke those in front of the Senate. And I think my biggest thing is just if we're going to be so overtly defining a policy based on race and sex / gender, that one, we should probably consult with legal counsel because that might violate the Civil Rights Act. And I also just don't support it as a policy. I think it's not, I don't think it's a good thing, basically, to have it be so overtly defined based on sex and race, and I think that it can ignore some of the nuances and complexities that might come up. Yeah, I think that's about it. So if there's questions, if there's discussion, I would love that.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to comment before I give feedback? Okay, I'm open to changing the language of the statement, which hasn't been changed from what it said originally on Facebook. This one also has low battery, so. After the initial discussion on Grinnell Thumbs Down, Michael Sims contacted me and said that I had to remove the language because it is in violation of Grinnell's anti-discrimination policy, which is against discriminating against any person on basis of race or gender, etc. So that's why I changed the language to prioritize artists of color and LGBTQ artists. In terms of the other wording, I added this because white bands, in my experience, working with concerts, bands that consisted mainly of straight white men cost concerts a lot more, are much more demanding both of our time, energy, and resources, and I've generally just not had great experiences with them. So these are some of my personal reasons for not wanting to book them. As for the legality of not paying them, the way that concerts works is, I or the artist reaches out and we begin discussing details for a contract. So there's nothing in place immediately with any artist as to how much they will be paid, when they will perform, etc., etc. And so I think it's quite legal to, in conducting or creating a contract with an artist, these people would know ahead of time that they.
Did it die again? I'm sorry.
So they would, these bands would know that they would not be getting paid like a basic fee, I guess, which is actually paying artists a basic fee or a standardized fee for their work is really uncommon, and it's something more that colleges do a lot more than other venues. Also, a lot of bands that request to play here will also go on and play in Iowa City and Des Moines, which I think is great, but they often perform at venues like Woolies or I can't think of the other one, that either charge admission or are based entirely on tips. So these artists are, coming to the college and doing a show, and we're paying them, we could be paying them $5,000, and then they're going to Iowa City the next day and performing a show, and they're making $5. The issue with this is that the bands that are going the next day, who are making $5,000 from us and then going the next day and not making as much money, are the bands that are most noticed and that get booked the most, which in the industry are white male bands. So I basically don't want to give more money than necessary to more white male bands in the industry because they already profit off of the music industry way more than other artists that are not cis white men.
Thank you. My apologies about the mic situation. We're trying to get that fixed. Senator Pedro Santa? So we're just gonna have to share the mics. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Can you just go over, Councilor Chair Christensen, how, the process for getting a band on campus?
So the process looks like, and this is, I received no training for this position, mind you. So this process is the process that I have developed over the course of this past summer and the semester. I created a Google form, which is easily accessible for all members, all students on campus to submit artists that they would like to see. And I compile a list of those suggestions. I start to do research on artists that I know are within our price range. So artists that are going to be playing for $10,000 or less as a show, because I personally want to have more shows that are more shows than less shows, I guess, if that makes sense, because of the budget. So I compile a list of artists based on suggestions, based on emails I get from artists and agents and booking managers across the country who are interested in performing at Grinnell. We have a really good reputation here as a venue, and there are a lot of alumni that work in this industry, so we have a lot of connections that way. Or from the list, I will, I go through and I find a way to contact that artist or that artist booking manager or booking agent, or the agency that they record and perform through, and I try and ask if they will be touring in the area or if they're willing to come out and travel in the area to do a show at Grinnell. And sometimes I get responses and sometimes I don't. And sometimes I get responses and we go back and forth a few times talking about what it would look like, what the costs would be, what dates would be available, and if it seems like it's going to work out, and if it is a band that I think is going to contribute meaningfully to the Grinnell community, then I send an initial unofficial what do I call it? Like an unofficial proposed contract saying like, okay, what we would like to do, what we would offer you is this and this and this. And that unofficial contract stays in place until the beginning of the semester, or whenever, usually about 4 weeks out from the show, we begin negotiating the finalized contract. which involves collecting the artist's like tax information, and either the artist will have their own contract or Michael Sims has one that he uses and customizes for individual bands, and that will be signed by both parties. And then payment that has been agreed upon is approved by the SJ treasurer and Michael Sims, and a check is requested from payroll, and I deliver the check to the artist after the show. So, do you have any other questions?
Thank you. Senator Zernick?
Yeah, so I completely understand and support prioritizing artists of color, women artists, and various other minority groups, and I don't think that's the problem. That's not what I'm speaking to. I also think that it's fair that white boy bands can generally have higher costs, and so I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have the ability to have artistic or budgetary discretion in terms of booking artists. I just think that having such an overt policy is, one, somewhat incomprehensive, and two, just fairly problematic and kind of discriminatory. And in terms of the legality of payment, I understand that different contracts will be worked out for different bands, and again, I have no issue with that. But when it's not an overall policy that all of our artists will receive only tips or merch sales, and it's specific to race and gender, I think that's when it becomes discriminatory. And just in general, like, I know we're not being discriminatory against a minority group, so it's not racist or sexist, but if we boil it down to the skeleton of the language, payment will be different based on race and sex. And so that is something that if we want to have an overt policy like that, I strongly suggest consulting the University Legal Counsel, or just consulting legal counsel. But more than that, I would suggest removing the language and keeping a prioritization of minority groups in our booking policy, and maintaining artistic, stylistic, budgetary discretion over booking, and determining what artists are going to play here.
Senator Collinger? Is it dead?
Yeah.
Oh,
no! Okay. Haha, jokes. Okay. Sorry. So I just want to applaud you, concert chair Christensen, because I think it is a difficult job, and like, you know, we make mistakes, and I really appreciate the fact that you were like, hey, like, I made a mistake, and like, and you're like really committed to being like, this is how I'm like changing this policy, and I think to what Senator Zornick was saying, I think you have changed the language, and I think it's, for me, I think it's good that you're saying we prioritize LGBTQ folks, and it's not to the point that you were saying of talking about white people. So I feel like personally, concerts chair, like they made a mistake, but they corrected it, and I want to applaud them for it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Senator Stallings?
Hi. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and as a person of color, I think I'm in like a pretty precarious position when it comes to like how I feel about this particular policy and things. But I feel like I should say something because it does seem like Cass is like constantly kind of fighting this by themselves, and I really want to express the fact that like I think that I really agree with what Cass has done. I think that it's really important to think about how systemic change is created, and I entirely believe that it's through the redistribution and reallocation of resources to people who have been historically stripped of those resources, who can remain to be stripped of those resources, which is true in the music industry. I do think the language currently as it stands is a bit inflammatory, but the message of the language I entirely stand behind. Cass is put into this position to bring good bands, do good work, and in this position that's not inherently about changing systemic problems, but I think Cass is actually really trying to do that. Yeah, I think that what they're doing is choosing what they're doing right now is how they choose to do good and how to undo systemic, long, ongoing injustices, and I entirely stand with them. I think that it's inflammatory, but simultaneously change is only created through really rough transition. And so I think that if we want to have a semester of Cass doing this because we put them in this position because we value what they think and how they think, then yeah, let's do it.
Thank you. Councillor Christensen?
Yeah, well, thank you both. That was, I don't know, sometimes this position feels strange in SGA, being part of the cabinet and working with a really large budget, but also it's not a typical student government position, I think, and it requires a lot of work that kind of goes on behind the scenes, which is what SGA does in general, but I think especially concerts. So thank you guys for acknowledging that. I really appreciate that. I'm willing to acknowledge that the language is a little bit inflammatory, and Senator Zornig, if you want to work with me on rewording it, I would be really open to that. Or anybody who wants to work on rewording that, or concerts policy in general, because we don't have we have very little institutional memory and institutional systems for how concerts functions and how it has functioned in the past. This includes the fact that we can't pay student bands the same way that we pay non-student bands, and that's something that I'm trying to change. Yeah, I guess I'm willing to work with you on changing the language, but yeah, I think that what you said about acting with the discretion with this in mind is ultimately just something I'm going to do next semester, and this winter break when I'm booking bands.
Senator Timberwolf?
I totally understand and support your mission of getting more diverse bands. What I don't like is the framing of the language. So if you could remove that, and if white cis male bands are more expensive, couldn't you work that out in the contracts if you see they're turning out to be more expensive, then turn them down based on that instead of explicitly stating it on policy on the college website? So if, they're expensive, be oh yeah, you're too expensive for us, so that's why I turn them down, and not kind of turn down paying them because they're white cis male bands.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Amelia was getting at with changing the language, and ultimately using the discretion of within my position and in these individual interactions to make those choices. So yeah, I hear you.
Senator Zornig?
I just wanted to reiterate two things. One, Cass, I really appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate the concerts just as a student here, not in my position as Senate, but I do really appreciate the work that you do, and I understand it's a difficult position, and I appreciate you being willing to work with us on this. The other thing is that I also think it's a strong position for Grinnell concerts to take, that we prioritize minority groups. I think that's a strong positive thing and speaks to what Carrie was saying in terms of using this position to combat systemic issues. And so I want to just again reiterate how much I fully support that portion. It's about the second half. That's it.
Thank you. DOC Logan?
I just want to say, I was kind of like with Carrie, where I've just been like listening to like watching that whole debate go down and like having like not super clear thoughts about it. But Cassie, as you were speaking, something that I just really wanted to acknowledge that I thought was like cool as fuck is like this policy is like rooted in what you've seen and like your experience in the concerts and music industry, and like even as a person of color who like is very invested in like rectifying like social inequities, I never would have even seen that nuance of how like certain bands could come here and get paid the same fee but then go on to make like a lot more in surrounding communities. And I just wanted to like acknowledge that thinking and that mindset, and like the fact that that was named, if not explicitly in this policy, like that spirit was there. And I would love to see that maintained, because like I never even thought of it that way, and I think that's totally legit.
Senator Zarnik? Okay. Congressman Chair Christensen?
I don't really have anything else to add right now, but if anybody wants to come talk to me about it, feel free, or send me an email, and we'll work on changing the language and trying to institutionalize this in a more productive way, maybe.
Thank you.
I think we can move on.
Alrighty. Anyone else have anything left to add? Nope. Thank you all for your thoughts. We are now going to move on to the cabinet reports. So AC Welch. Can we get a mic down to AC Welch, please?
I don't have anything to add, but does anybody have any questions?
Senator Stallings. Can we get the mic back to Senator Stallings? Thank you.
I think you knew this was coming. I would like to talk about the meeting, or the lack thereof, most recent meeting with SGA and admin.
So on Thursday, basically, we have this meeting every other week with deans and directors. It's mostly student affairs people. Deb Schill comes, James Shropshire, well, she's invited. James Shropshire comes typically. And on Thursday, the execs heard from Sarah that like they would like to cancel the meeting because it was her understanding that many people in her department wouldn't be available, which doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people in our department are available. Like, we have things to talk about with like any number or combination of people that could be there. So we went ahead with like sending the agenda to everybody that's invited and telling them to come if they can come. We ended up with just Deanna Short there, which is awesome. Thank you, Deanna Short. She came. She was there like she had a meeting before, so she came like at 12:20. The meeting starts at 12. But I don't know. I've been to these meetings since the beginning of my third year, and I've never ever seen this where nobody, because they're not like very interrelated like departments necessarily, or people who are working like very close to each other. I've never seen this where nobody shows up to this meeting. This doesn't exist. This doesn't happen. It's impossible that nobody would show up to this meeting unless they were directed to not show up to this meeting, which is super disappointing. But yeah, we talked with Deanna Short for a while about our frustrations with this and how this went down. And we had a lot of other important things we wish we could have talked about with other administrators, but we did not have the opportunity to.
I saw some other hands. Were there any other questions?
Well, like, what was the meeting gonna be about? Like, what would be a reason for them not to come?
I'm gonna pull up the agenda real quick on my computer just so I can tell you what we were gonna talk about. One sec. Okay, so one of the things was the incidents of students using racial slurs in the loja during Drake Gardner, which we would have liked to talk about with Mari, Sarah. Ben was out of town, but he would be another good one. Campus safety, Joe Ralown, any number of these people. Forgotten and lost key policies, also. Joe would be a good person there, James would be a good person there. Riley can talk more about that, but I mean, the fact that students, if they lose their keys or they get locked out of their dorms, they have to pay for campus safety to unlock them. That like disincentivizes people locking their doors, and we're trying to get moving on changing that. Riley's been working on that. Issues with on-campus laundry. I know Smallcare's been having a lot of issues with that, and student email fatigue, and like brainstorming other ways that admin can get into contact with students. So these are like this is like, I would say this is probably like a more jam-packed agenda than usual, like of things we wanted to talk about. I think we were very like excited to be talking about these things. It wasn't like we were just having a meeting to have a meeting or anything like that. Yes, and we also missed the one 2 weeks before because it fell on Thanksgiving. So, there's going to be a gap in the middle of the academic year from like November, I don't know, 12th-ish to like end of January, beginning of February, where they will not be meeting with SGA.
Senator Herbert?
Yeah, I think you just answered my question. I was going to ask, are you going to have an opportunity before the end of the semester to talk to any of these people about these issues? Specifically like the locking doors thing and the Clarion Act and all of that, like, because that's pretty important and time sensitive.
Mm-hmm. There are like other members of cabinet who have like regular meetings with some people who come to these meetings. Like the execs meet with Sarah and Ben every week. I think Regina meets with Maury. Yeah. So yes and no. We will. It's like generally very hard to like corral all these people, and that's why like we depend on this Friday meeting that's regularly scheduled.
Senator Pierce?
I just wanted to ask really quickly, could you just mention exactly who was supposed to be there that didn't show up, like run through it really quickly so I can put it in my minutes?
Sure, yeah. Yes. So I'll tell you everyone who's invited. There are some people who I've never seen show up. But Jen Jacobson, Joe Malone, Deb Schill, Deanna Sharp came, James Shropshire, Mari Smith-Benanti, Karen Edwards, not a regular attendee, Sarah Motion Ross, Ben Newhouse, who's out of town, Michael Sims, who typically comes, and Autumn Wilkie, who does not typically come.
Senator Vale?
Could you go over expressly, like, what was their reason for not showing up, like, so that we know, like precisely?
So their reasoning was that a lot of people either had sick children or were sick themselves or had like other meetings that they had to attend. I don't know how truthful that is, but you know, I saw them later on.
Councillor Christensen?
I happened to come across both Sarah Motion Ross and James, who's head of security, during this time because I left halfway through the meeting to attend the union organized protest. And Sarah Motion Ross and James were outside of our president's house with those protesters. They were not in any other meetings, and they appeared in good health to me with my eyes. That's all I'm saying.
AC Welch.
Cassidy also helped me bring the food up for the meeting, and Joe alone held the door for us.
Senator Stallings.
I just want to say, imagine being whatever way it takes to be like this so much that you can cancel a meeting that you didn't even organize. Like, you cancel a meeting that you were invited to. Like, we're not going to show up, so the meeting should be canceled. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely, I just want to say that's ridiculous.
Senator Chris Cocktail.
I just wanted to, we've kind of established that does this have a relationship to the fact that the last meeting that they were in was ambushed? Not like, I'm thinking of a positive word for that. Surprise party of the union. Was there right outside their meeting? Do you think that has that's the reason that they don't want to do it again?
AC Welch.
The execs may be able to speak more to the nature of the email or communications they got from Sarah, but I've never seen this before, and it happened to fall 1 week after the protest. So I would expect they're related.
Senator Christian, substitute talk show. Senator Pedro Santa.
Wait, did something happen in your previous meeting?
So at the end, if you saw or heard about the protest in which Angela Voos and Dean Latham were, followed and chanted at from JRC to Nolan House, that began right outside of the SGA offices where they were meeting with us. So they finished meeting with us, and then the union was outside. To be clear, SGA had no role in organizing this protest. We weren't asked permission to let them line up out there. I mean, they just notified us that they would be doing it, and we did not notify Angela and Dean Latham that would be happening because we're not going to do that.
TOC Logan. Can we get a mic, please? It's not on.
Okay. Yeah, when this happened, I was pissed. Because to just reiterate what was on the agenda, we went into that meeting to talk about how we can decrease bias incidents of people yelling the N-word outside of residence halls. We wanted to talk about I wanted to talk about specifically how women can be safer on campus when Clery Acts are going out 60 hours after incidents happen, when it's not clear exactly what the nature, I had questions about this Clery Act. I had questions about important things that happened to students on our campus, and there was nobody there except for Deanna Shore to answer our questions. There was nobody there to work with us to think about how we can keep students safer. And so I emailed James to ask, where were you? I had these questions, can you answer them? I'm going to email more, the rest of them, and be I had questions, please let me know. And I just want to say, y'all have the right as students, and I think the responsibilities as senators to be hey, these things happened in the recent weeks. We were expecting, Cabinet to give us an update. Cabinet said they couldn't give us an update because they didn't meet with you. What's your take? Feel free to ask these people where they were.
Senator Vale.
I think I'm gonna articulate in not necessarily the most polite terms what most of us are probably thinking, that this is incredibly huge act of bullshit. And not only is that, it's a petty act of bullshit that undermines the safety and security of students at this goddamn school, and the administration decided instead of being adults to be petty children and run away because they had an uncomfortable interaction with people that they disagree with. And so they put people's safety, peace of mind, and physical security like, they put their own interests ahead of that, which is undermining their goddamn job. And that is beyond unacceptable. That they can stand and use their normal gilded rhetoric. It shows that they're full of bullshit. They've undermined their positions as the administration of this campus. They've undermined their respect, and God knows how they're going to build that back up, because respect is built by a drip and lost by a bucket. And my God, did they bring a lot of buckets.
Senator Stallings.
Hi. So I was thinking that maybe, in the same words, perhaps, we could draft an email to the people who showed up to the meeting, and anyone who like stands with this message of like this is wrong and things like that. We as senators and cabinet members could be like, hi, we have questions and we would like answers to them, and we don't appreciate not having answers. And like CC us and everything, and like just have a big email with all of this in there. Or maybe we can email bomb them, either way. I think that it would be really constructive if we did that and like express that people like as the Senate like are really upset about it.
Thank you. I see DOC Logan.
Yeah, just in terms of like the follow-up strategy, Cabinet's talked a little bit about what we're gonna do and like how we're gonna talk to people, because my instinct when people weren't there, honestly, was to extend goodwill. Like, if you tell me that you're sick and you're not here and nobody's here, like, I'm gonna be the adult in the room and I'm gonna believe you and I'm gonna say like, okay, let's come back to our next meeting and do work. It was hard for me to do that when I saw pictures of Sarah Moshe and James George Dyer at the protest and like kept seeing deans and directors around. I still think it would be good for us to be careful about telling them that they were purposely not there, because if we start backing them into a corner, then we are nowhere. And so my advice, and like take it with a grain of salt, like everyone has the right here to approach us however we want. I think it would be most powerful for people to go with genuine curiosity about the issues. Make it less about the fact that, y'all didn't show up to do your job, but like actually demonstrate how they didn't show up to do their jobs by showing them that there are senators that come to campus council and expect for there to be reports from cabinet, and when you don't hear that, you notice. I think that would be a really powerful thing for senators to do. And when CAB kind of figures out like exactly how, and if anyone else who actually has meetings with these people coming up want to speak to how we're going to talk to them about this, wants to speak on that, we'll just like keep you posted on how this relationship hopefully gets stronger and we can get back to doing the work that we are all paid to do.
Thank you. Senator Herbert.
So I completely agree with Senator Stallings. I think that maybe instead of an email, we should do like a letter, I don't know how you do this, but like something that you release, like a press release kind of like these are our questions, and kind of including the same types of things that you were talking about as well. Like, these are our questions, we want to talk about this, and this is SGA as a united front, this is what we want to say. I think that would be really useful, instead of just maybe behind the scenes also showing students like we are trying to figure this out. Because I've heard from a lot of people talking about, well, why haven't we heard more about this Disciplinary Act? Like, why didn't we find out about this sooner? A lot of concerned students, so yeah.
Thank you. Senator Vale.
Also on the points raised by Senator Herbert and Senator Stallings, we could do the email, I don't know if we have the ability to actually have an actual press release, or just a resolution. I know that's something we don't have reform to really iron it out, and I doubt anyone wants to write up a formal resolution right now and stay an extra 30 minutes. And I doubt anyone has one on hand. But I think there needs to be some measure that is public and accessible to everyone on campus to sort of ask our questions. And I do agree with DOC Logan that we probably shouldn't back administration into a corner, because then they're probably just going to get mad and lash out, and that will just like spiral. And we should try to prevent the spiral by showing them like what adults should do, even like if they were legitimately sick. The perceptions of their actions kind of matter more than the reality, because sometimes perception is reality. And it looks like they ran away and were really petty. And unless they write that by like publicly saying like, no, we messed up, we're sorry, like I don't know how we go about fixing that. But we should give them at least some level of the benefit of the doubt, because like unfortunately we can't get rid of them, we're stuck with them, and they're stuck with us for at least another semester, unless they decide to expel us. But I doubt that will come to pass. But yeah, we need to engage with sort of principle and some dignity.
Thank you. Let's get a mic to the back, then we'll go to Senator Stallings, then we'll go to Senator Zernig. No? Okay.
Hello. Hi. My name is Arturo Hernandez. I live in Rathje, and I think, like, listening to all of this, I think what we're trying to do is just figure out a way to, like, formally hold these people accountable. And I'm interested in, you know, helping y'all do that. My question is, like, do they have any accountability to meet with you guys? Like, is it written somewhere where, like, yes, every year there is a set amount of meetings where they have to attend, kind of like how there are rules, like to be a senator you can only miss twice? Is there a rule for that, like meeting with administration or like anyone higher up? And if not, can we draft something to possibly, you know, improve relations between SGA and the college?
Thank you, Arturo. Vipa Murphy?
Constitutionally, we as student government leaders have an obligation, like as cabinet members, we have an obligation to meet with them. Obviously, we can't do that if they don't hold up their end, but that is a good idea. I don't know what form that could possibly take, because we can't make rules over the administration. But that concept of identifying that there is a obligation, at least on our end, is a good concept.
Right, so, I mean, you would think, yeah, I guess, institutional power, you would think that they would want to improve relations, whatever. I can't remember the point that I was trying to make. I'm sorry. I'll think about it.
VPSA Tombu?
Just responding to like your point, I think something that we could do in the beginning, we can set like a list of like expectations, requests for like the admin, and like the execs can present it in our like 3-on-2 meetings that we have weekly. And moving from there, hopefully, I don't know, we'll set up like rapport with the admin. I don't know, right now we're just working on trying to build relations again, because it's been destroyed. So.
Thank you. Senator Zernig? She didn't have anything to ask.
I just want to voice that I don't think it would be incredibly productive to go after admin for shirking their responsibilities. As much as I'm also angry about it, I want to say that I support DOC Logan's approach, and I think that we have important concerns and questions that need to be answered. And I just think we have to be careful in how we go at this, because there's a lot of room to further damage the relationship between SGA and admin, and that's not going to help anyone. So personally, I don't think I'm comfortable with Erish's language being presented to admin as like an SGA opinion. Then, well, that was particularly inflammatory, but just in general, I think we should approach this kind of slowly and be careful about maintaining that relationship, because the people, if it gets worse, if that relationship is further damaged, whoever's fault it is, it's just gonna suck for the students, for everyone.
Thank you. Senator Stallings?
Yeah, I don't think anyone wanted to send an email with airicious language. As much as we may agree with it, I think we're all in these positions because we do have some form of diplomacy. Particularly, I was thinking the email could note. I actually wrote down the language that DOC Logan mentioned, just like something along the lines of "we notice." Like we as senators expect this information weekly. We want updates. We want to know what's going on. We care about these issues. We noticed you didn't come. How do we prevent this from happening again? Because this should not become a habit that this happens like this. Whether for whatever reasons it may have happened, it just shouldn't happen. I don't think there needs to be any type of language like fails. I think we understood that.
Thank you. This is just a reminder to talk about ideas, not people. No one overtly disobeyed that rule, but just be mindful of talking about ideas, not people. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have anything left to add? Senator Zernig. Okay, Deepa Murphy.
Yeah, just on the point of making people mad at us. When it comes to the 3-on-2 meetings that the execs have with Sarah and Ben with DSA, I think really no matter what happens, they consider things to be blindsiding. When the resolutions that were passed a couple weeks ago condemning the associate director of student activities position, the conduct standing and academic standing requirements, they were deeply upset about these resolutions. So as far as making a statement to administration, I'll speak from my own perspective, not from all of cabinet, but feel free to piss them off. I don't know, we'll deal with it. We'll be fine. If Senate wants to take a strong stance, it's not gonna hurt us. But do know that these relationships are super strained right now, and anything at all is snapping things off. So I just want people to know that in terms of considering a response, a light response is probably going to make them angry just as much as a harsh response would.
Thank you. AC Wells, do you have anything left to add to this, to your cabinet report?
Yes, since we are still on my cabinet report, I just wanted to shout out Senator Nath for initiating a work order for her cluster's laundry facilities, which are in disrepair.
Alrighty. Let's move on to the next cabinet report. Treasurer Ercolani. Can we get a mic to Quinn, please?
I have one thing to add. Echoing a line in Dylan's report, I really would love to shout out Deanna Shore, both for just being at that meeting, but also being very receptive to the issues that we were bringing to her at that meeting and working with us in a very positive way, but also in the fact that while we didn't get to those very, very critical issues that we were hoping to get to in that meeting with members of the administration, we also were able to set up a $1,200 book scholarship fund with the textbook lending library for students for the library itself to purchase books that it doesn't already have, so that students who are high need on this campus can access those resources that they desperately need for their education. So shout out to Deanna Shore for being the bigger person and getting something positive done on this campus.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to A.T. Weber, who is absent, so we will move on to DOC Logan.
Alright, I wanted to do an oral report because I've been gone for a second. I have mostly just been doing the usual stuff, like meetings with Mari, meetings on the Council of Diversity and Inclusion, having outreach meetings, doing a lot of work this semester with first year council. We'll be having our final event this week, which will be kind of a SGA cab and first year's meet and greet study break, so that the end of the semester, the people who will be now eligible to run to be senators and get involved in SGA we'll kind of understand what the different committees do and stuff. But yeah, I was gone for a week at a diversity conference, which was absolutely awesome, and I learned a lot of cool stuff and curriculum pieces, and if anybody wants to learn more, I love to talk about it, but I won't bore you now. And just like looking forward to next semester, I'll have hopefully more capacity to do other stuff that's not first year council. I've had like a lot of first year council stuff this semester. And so if you have any like outreach ideas, definitely let me know, like especially before break, so that they're just like on my radar, so that over winter break I can be kind of, you know, like institutional planning or whatever from the DOC office.
Thank you. Any
questions? I know I've been gone, I probably missed stuff.
Any of all that? Nope. Okay. Thank you, DOC Logan. Viva Murphy.
Yeah, you guys see the things. Grinnell Prize Selection Committee was like a bunch of stuff, but such cool people. If you're not like in the loop on the whole Grinnell Prize stuff, just like search it and go look at some like the past winners in like the last 5 years. Just an amazing program that our institution has. I want to second the concept that Deanna Shore is the only person in the administration who has yet to disappoint me.
I agree.
And I guess, do people, this is a thing that I'm going to be talking about in a meeting tomorrow that I guess student input would be cool on. In the new building, when they open it up, there's going to be some furniture that's not put in yet in like the atrium, in the team spaces, and in the common spaces. Those 3 areas, they are going to use recycled furniture from the ARH and Carnegie, right? Like they're going to take the furniture that is in there now and put it in there. But they don't have enough for all 3 spaces. If you care about which spaces are going to be furnished on like January whatever when we come back, please let me know, because I don't know what to tell people when they're going to ask me tomorrow. So please let me know either now or email me. Thank you. It's in common spaces, which is going to be kind of like more like the grill, but without like, you know, the grill. Just places to like sit around and like study and talk. Team spaces, which are smaller rooms for like 2 to 3 people, or like mostly just like walkways. Like, you know how in like Noise there are like benches and stuff on the sides of walkways. Those are like the 3 things. So please let me know.
Thank you, Viva Murphy. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? No, we're all good. Okay. VPSA, no, President Becker. My bad. Can we get a mic to Reverend President Becker?
Just kind of the usual. Just wanted to give a shout out to Cab for picking up stuff while I was gone. Specifically, Dylan's work on filling the JROC position. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, VPSA Tumbu, who is no longer with us. As in she left, I'm sorry. That was not the wording that I meant to use. As in she had to go. No, she had to go. Thank you. Councilor Chair Christensen. Okay, Ace Chair, nope, Services Chair Tibetamwa.
I'm going to say I'm really sorry for not submitting this report. It's been a rough week, guys. FogFest went really well. We changed it up, so we did the whole Google Doc submission. We got like 350 meals, so thank you everybody who tabled. Met with Kira a bit. We're rethinking like our connection with community partners and how student groups like can meet with community partners. We have like 300 of them, so that's a bit difficult. Regular meetings, again, Deanna Shore is the best, and if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you. Senator Pedro Santa. Can we get a mic to Carlos, please? Thank you.
When you met with Kira, was that to talk about how student groups can work with community partners without having a faculty or department supervisor on site every time they step onto the property of the community partner?
I sort of wish, that does come into our conversations a lot. The problem is the direction that admin is moving, that situation is likely to continue, hence DSA. They're just not gonna move away from the idea of having like a faculty advisor. No matter how much we push, that's the direction they're going in.
And so your conversations with Kira about service in the community was about what, like?
Well, we've been thinking, the problem is right now when people want to apply for like a services budget, they have to be a student group. And while that does allow for some accountability, what if you want to just do a service project outside that scope? Do you just create a service group for the sole purpose of this singular project? That's why like our list of student orgs just got bulky, because like there are people who just did literally just receive money for one instance.
And so what came out of that conversation?
We're thinking of having a new framework. Like I'll have to talk to Quinn about this, of course. I don't make these decisions alone, but a new framework for like services in particular. About, for example, could groups come through the CLS and still get services funding, or can we be a bit more freeform with the way we hand out money to groups who want to run service projects?
It was entirely about money, like house, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess you could go like that.
Thank you. Senator Zernig?
I just wanted to ask about the system for FogFast, because I tabled a couple times and I had to input the P card numbers manually because the card reader didn't work. I just like gave a random number. So just wanted to make sure you know about that and we can maybe address that, try to deal with it before next semester.
Okay. So I want to move away from the whole P card reader thing. That's why I sent out the form. I was like, well, for all time's sake, we might as well do the P card reader. But does anyone want to know how FogFast works, or you're good? Anybody? No? Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Do you want to know?
Senator Jones? Can you get a mic to Declan, please? Thank you.
Do we know how much the college donates per meal swipe? Is it like the value $16, whatever they charge?
Oh no, it's definitely not the whole
Yeah,
thing.
so what's the...
It's a percentage that we bargain for every year. I'm still in those, like it varies. It can go 25%, 50%. Of course, guess what direction I bargain in. But I'll let you know how that conversation goes.
Thank you. All right. Do you have anything else to add? Vice Chair Mystic is not here. All right, everyone. Oh, Senator Lloyd. Yes, you can. And seconded by AC Welch. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Thank you all for a semester of hard work and engagement. Good job, everybody.